Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to VR Roundup, episode 22, the Gaming Friday edition, which is fitting. I mentioned in the last episode, not a heck of a lot going on in terms of VR news, current events, so fitting that the last episode of the year falls on a Gaming Friday because Road to VR has an excellent article that we're going to talk about where they recommend a handful of VR social games for when you've got family and friends over on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, etc. So we're going to look at that. But before we do, I want to clear up some confusion with regards to my released video from a couple of days ago, which was a top 10 VR games 2017 list. And I get a chuckle out of it because I was getting messages about having abandoned and forsaken Elite Dangerous. Dude, I thought you said it was your favorite game. Why is it not on the list? Do you still recommend it? What's going on? Absolutely. Obviously, I did a pretty poor job of saying it was in the title, but looking back, I can see how people could be mistaken, that it was a 2017 list, not an all-time list. But with that said, guys, many of you did do top 10 all-time lists, and I got a bunch of game recommendations that I'm going to go through over the next few weeks, so totally appreciate that. There were some top 2017, but yeah, my criteria was basically it had to be published in 2017. So a title like Elite Dangerous, which goes back to the Oculus DK1, wasn't on that list. But because there were so many excellent all-time lists, I'm going to throw my hat into the ring and likewise do a top 10 all-time. So that'll be out before the end of the year. With that said, though, guys, let's jump into the first news story, the Pimax 8K. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about a very successful Series A funding round that they had to the tune of $15 million US. And at the time, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they delay the January 2018 shipping date to improve some last-minute technical features. Turns out that's exactly what they're doing. They want to up their current refresh rate of 75 hertz and match the Rift and the Vive up in the 90 hertz club. So they're going to do an update for backers at the end of the first week in January. Let you guys all know what the revised shipping dates are and what their plans are. Now with this next story, guys, and this isn't a pick on the millennials, quite the opposite, but before the Will Wheatons and the Freaks and Geeks and the Big Bang Theories, it wasn't always fun and games being a geek. If it was bad for us, hey, we got to see that transition. And that transition pretty much happened as us Gen Xers transitioned from being teenagers into adulthood. It was becoming okay. It was becoming acceptable right in front of our eyes, right around us. The generation before us, the baby boomers, they didn't have it so easy. The family goes down to sleep. The lights go off. It's past the time when friends can drop by on short notice. The coast is clear. The father goes downstairs, picks up an odd-looking hat. It looks like a train conductor's hat, puts it on, puts on a train conductor's vest, turns the lights on to the stairs that lead down to the very cold and unfinished basement, where upon a table is a magnificent model toy train set. For a lot of baby boomers, guys, that is how they practiced their hobbies. Fast forward to now, things are much better. We can openly wear our geek on our sleeve, and companies like Sumalab in Spain free to publicly and openly make toy train sets. Well, theirs in the form of a virtual reality application called Trainer VR. Now, this is a VR experience that lets you create everything from simple tracks to massively elaborate rail networks like the one that I described in my little baby boomer example. Placement of tracks, trains, cars, towns, props, you name it, it can be built because a part exists for it virtually. It's available for both Rift and Vive at a 30% discount currently. So instead of the $15 US, you can have it for $10.50. The Pico 6 Degree of Freedom Standalone VR HMD is going to be going west just like the Vive Focus. Pico Tech making their tech selections clear. They've opted with a Snapdragon 835, 3-hour battery life, 4 gigs of RAM, 90 hertz refresh rate, and some really nice 1440 by 1600 AMO LEDs, and finally 128 gigabyte capable SD slot. Now, Chinese consumers are going to have the option of a 3 Degree of Freedom controller or the 6 Degree of Freedom. Here in the West, consumers only have access to the higher spec 6 Degree of Freedom unit. Hardlight VR's Mark III haptic gear coming in at its cheapest price offering yet, a price point of $300 US, down significantly from the $630 US for the consumer version we mentioned earlier this year, and $1,100 for the business edition. So this time around, identically priced, the only difference being that businesses have to pay an additional $10 monthly or $100 annually in terms of a licensing fee. Now, just as a reminder, it's been a while since we looked at this unit, but it's the unit that comes as a vest with full torso and arm tracking capability. So think of this essentially, guys, as an upper body haptic vest kit. So there are 16 programmable haptic devices throughout the upper body of the kit. They can be triggered through programming or via an audio mode. So via the audio mode, it would work similar to other haptic devices that are triggered by audio, meaning certain bass frequencies, etc., can trigger it off. So if you're caught in an explosion, you might get a rumble that, takes up the entire set. You'd feel it all around your chest area to mimic being in an explosion. Because of you guys, many of you kind of constantly harping on it, your perseverance, I think I owe it to myself as a 2018 resolution of sorts to try more social gaming. And I started that yesterday with another one of the viewers and actually had quite a bit of fun doing Audio Shield. Now, it was just friendly competition in terms of high score. He would go first, then I would try to beat it, etc. And I've been having a blast with Audio Shield. That still might be a game that's a little bit too single player, if you will, right? Road to VR has an article where they talk about asymmetrical games and games that more people can get involved with that you can play with just one virtual reality head-mounted display. The rest of the players either playing without anything, just verbally, or via computers and gamepads, etc. Let's take a look at that list. So first up, guys, we have Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which I have tried and is quite a bit of fun. So the video here does a pretty good job of showing how and why this is such a great party game. So you've got the player with the HMD. They take on the role of a bomb diffusing specialist. The problem is they don't have access to the diffusion manual, i.e. snip the X color cable when it should have been the black, etc. Yeah, boom is what happens. Well, other players act as the go-between with access to the manual and the responsibility of passing on the instructions to the player. And as you can guess, hilarity and suspense ensues, and yes, a lot of mishaps and carnage as well. Definitely a fun party game to play. Next up, Mass Exodus, the year 2174, and in a remote and very creepy Android factory, the HMD VR player, they play in the role of an android seeker. And that seeker has to identify up to 4 rogue androids within a cast of hundreds. So the other players, they play those up to 4 rogue androids, trying to blend in and avoid being singled out, while they access panels scattered throughout the complex. So you can see the challenge. They're avoiding being singled out and removed from the game while trying to achieve their own objectives. The Seeker, likewise, trying to pick them out. Now, each side has special abilities. The Seeker can invoke a kind of stop, stop, go, if you're familiar with that game. So the power to stop all Android movement, and that can assist because if players playing in Android don't stop fast enough, slow down, or start up fast enough, they would become obvious, and the HMD VR player can just pick them right out. Likewise, the players themselves have the ability to temporarily blind the Seeker if they feel the Seeker is on to them. So again, they can invoke that, blind the Seeker, and then either move on or readjust themselves within that environment, leaving the Seeker to wonder, where did they go? The third title, and this is either or, Tilt Brush on Vive or Quill on Rift. And this is for the Jimmy Fallon featured style Pictionary. So these drawing games are very, very well suited for that. Probably not as involved in some senses for the other players, like the asymmetrical ones, but in another sense, they're the ones directly trying to guess what the person with the HMD is drawing. So agreed. Another fantastic way, especially with people who have a little bit of a tech phobia, right? Just a perfect way to get them in on the sly. So as you can see, guys, some really good suggestions. If you've got family and friends over and you're looking for a way to entertain and get guests involved that's, away from the standard play cards or board games, you might want to pull out the VR unit and dazzle them with some tech. There you have it, guys. Well, that's the end of this episode, the end of 2017. Guys, thank you so much for your viewership this year, and hopefully you guys stick around for 2018 and beyond. I think we're going to have a fantastic year. Guys, Happy New Year. A little bit ahead of time, but best of luck for 2018. Cheers.